KMO Show, episode number 35. Monday, April 20th, 2026. Hey everybody, KMO here. It is 420, which is to say April 20th. My birthday is April 20th, 1968, which means I turned 58 today. That makes me a member of Generation X, and at this point in my life, I have still lived most of it in the 20th century. I fully intend to live to age 65, and if I do, that is the year in which I will have lived more than half my life in the 21st century. But for now, I remain a product of the 20th century and, most importantly, I would say, the 1980s and the 1990s when I was a young adult. I turned 20 in 1988. And just recently, a 20-year-old man from Texas named Daniel Moreno Gama tried to throw a Molotov cocktail at the home of Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. Sam Altman has a big, expensive home with a high wrought iron fence and a gate, and Moreno's cocktail hit the top of the wrought iron gate, and it burned for a few seconds, and no damage was done. He then went to OpenAI headquarters, where he tried to smash through the glass door with a chair. He failed, but he also attracted the attention of security and law enforcement, and they found him in possession of kerosene and other items that one could use to start a fire, and a manifesto. This kid was agitated and basically taking ill-advised action on alarmist framing of artificial intelligence, specifically that articulated by Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Soares in their book, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. I call him a kid because, to me, that's what a 20-year-old is. He is still several years away from having an adult brain with the full complement of adult cognitive skills and inhibitions. But as inept as his efforts were, he does seem to have set out to set buildings on fire, which is arson. And attempted arson is a serious crime. So the conversation that I have for you in this episode of the podcast is with Kenneth E. Harrell. He has been on before. He is a cybersecurity specialist and a science fiction author. And I know him because he also has a Substack, and we follow a lot of the same accounts on Substack. One of which is that of Maggie Vale, whom we will discuss at length in the latter part of this conversation, which you're about to hear. It started off with he and I, we're both Gen Xers, basically talking about the experience of life at this stage in life. So I'm not going to play all that for you. I'm going to start where we get into talking about the anti-AI backlash. So here is my conversation with Kenneth E. Harrell. Well, hey, we were going to talk about artificial intelligence and a growing AI backlash. And we don't need to talk about this particular incident, but I'm just marking it in time with a reference to just a few days ago. A young man, 20 years old, threw a Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's house and then went with a can of kerosene and announced his intentions to burn down the AI or the OpenAI corporate headquarters. And of course, he had no realistic prospect of getting anywhere near the building. But that was his intention, and he is being charged with arson. And arson, rightly enough, is a very serious crime. And if you were convicted of it, you were going to prison for a long time, which, we had a little exchange on this on Substack. And to me, I've got two kids who are both in their 20s. So to me, a 20-year-old is a child and a very impressionable child. And we live in a time when people are highly motivated and highly rewarded for taking extremely emotional and just you're really leaning into ideological stances.
Yeah.
And so, to me, if he had not encountered, and this certainly not, I'm not blaming Eliezer Yudkowsky or Nate Soares at all. They are allowed to have a position and to articulate it as they will and put it out there. But, he was really invested in this whole if anyone builds it, everyone dies narrative. And that was his motivation for trying to take out Sam Altman and, burn down OpenAI. And I'm laughing about it because just the absurdity of the ambition of the act is funny, except somebody
Yeah.
just ruined their life over it. And to me, the problem, I mean, for this kid, the problem was impulse control, which you don't really develop until you're about 25.
Yeah.
And and then, the other problem is this online echo chamber of whatever, niche or bespoke or boutique, not really bespoke, but boutique worldview you plug into. There is an amplification device where you could just go and, have other people feed that same thing, that same set of concerns and convictions back to you, to the point where if you're 20, you think you have to go out and take violent action in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm, as I told you, about to turn 58. I've been interested in AI since I was in my 20s, and
Hmm.
I've been waiting for it for a very long time. And it is just really frustrating for when it actually gets here, for the mass of people who haven't thought anything about it to take really emotionally strident stances on it based on the most ephemeral fads of current political discourse and, cultural tribalism. It,
Well, I think there's a lot going on with the anti-AI movement. So first, I think that we kind of have to start with the pitch. So the original pitch of AI was that, hey, look, we have to build this thing. Okay. And the reason why we have to build it is because China's building their version of it. It might destroy humanity or it might eliminate 90% of jobs. Just right there. That just doesn't sound very appealing. And then they sort of toss in that, we might get a cure for cancer and maybe we'll solve the protein folding problem. And who knows, we might, I don't know, automate all scientific research and come up with all sorts of new technologies and cures and innovations. Or we might destroy the world, or we could get AGI. And it's like that's a big mix of things, most of which don't sound particularly pleasing. And what they're saying is, hey, give me all your data. And in fact, we'll just take the entirety of all human knowledge that has ever been recorded. We'll treat it as training data. No one's going to be compensated, but we might get some cool stuff out of it, like later down the road in the future. That is not a message that gets me excited to get into this technology. And they keep focusing and harping on the loss of jobs. It might destroy the world. And ever since the very first, because the very first negative message I can remember was unleashing the demon. That was the very first one that I remember, and that came from Elon Musk. And so this coupled with the fact that we're in economically challenging times, people are losing their jobs, not so much because of AI, but because of a lot of the hype around it. From what I've seen looking out there, and I could be wrong, companies are eliminating people and then simply blaming AI. And then they say, okay, the rest of you guys who didn't get laid off, we're going to start keeping track of all of the tokens that you use. And if you use a lot of tokens, that's a good thing. And then if you don't use tokens, then that's a bad thing. And I just think that the entire approach from the media hype to the way that the AI companies are talking about it to the lack of education of the populace, it all sort of combines into what we have now, which is this very confused, angry, enraged, you know, group of folks that are out there. I don't think that this issue is going to go away because it's not as if the anti-AI people are completely full of it. They have legitimate arguments. When you have a data center in your neighborhood and it's causing it's making subsonic noises that are kind of driving you crazy, and it also is increasing your electrical bill and impacting your water. Those are real things. It's kind of like the equivalent of having Godzilla in your backyard. It's just sucking up power and sucking up water, and you have no choice in it. And that's another crucial point. People are not being given a choice. Whenever we see these messages, they say, you will use AI in this way, and the world will change in that way. And there's almost no room for anyone to say, what if I don't want to live like that? What if I don't want this technology? Now, you and me use the technology, obviously. I mean, I consider myself sort of an AI enthusiast. but I'm not blind to the problems that are in the industry, and I'm not blind to the effects that it has on society. I find it very difficult to find a side of all good guys and all bad guys here. I think that a lot of these tech CEOs, they haven't thought this thing all the way through. They're focused on their own individual goals. And almost nothing that they say makes any kind of real sense when you step back and take a look at it. It's just a really complex problem. And there's a tendency by both people online that are debating it and in the media to simplify it all down to um, AI oligarchs, or just people who have drank the Kool-Aid on AI. And I just don't think that it's as simple as the media portrays it. And which brings me to another issue, and that's the media. Our media right now is not doing the job of the fourth estate. They are pathological and damaging at this point. They're not really informing people. They're just damaging everyone. They're scaring the shit out of everybody. They're not informing. They're not bothering to educate people on and they just run with whatever the AI marketing people come out with. They just run with it. And I don't think that this is recoverable. I don't think we're ever going to get back to a point where we can say, hey, this is what AI is and this is what it isn't, and this is how it's changing. And here are some of the ways. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get back to a place where we can have a reasoned discussion on this because, real people are involved, real world impacts are present, real pain is being felt by people on a lot of different levels. And we can't keep going in the direction that we're going. Did you catch the interesting interview that was done? I think it was by Tech Report, where one of the guests was saying that if the AI companies just simply stopped talking about job elimination, that could help tremendously. And they're not doing any of these things. So I kind of blame the AI companies themselves for where we are right now. But at the same time, I don't think that this kind of violence is justified. And then there's some other issues about the anti-AI movement that we can talk about with regard to how, like so many things in our era, um, people have sort of incorporated politics sort of into their identity. And now this anti-AI thing, it is kind of a political issue right now. And sadly, everything's sort of become kind of a political issue. So I just think that these issues are really complex and it really takes a lot to sort of unbundle them. But we have to do it like on an individual level almost because it seems like there's no public square or place to do it. There's conversations like the one we're having, conversations between other individuals, but an all society conversation, I don't see it's possible. Our society is not made for that.
Well, one of the ironies about the anti-AI sentiment and reflex is that part of why our society is so polarized and so antagonistic is social media, and
Yeah.
our attention has been maleficently directed for a decade now by primitive forms of artificial intelligence, which were just tasked with keeping us engaged with these social media platforms.
Yeah.
And they discovered that getting people angry at one another and having people lash out because they feel threatened because they have incorporated their belief system into their notion of their own personal identity, and when their belief system
Yes.
is criticized, they take it as a personal attack, and
That's correct.
they respond in kind. This has all been the work of artificial intelligence. It's just that we don't see it. It doesn't talk. It doesn't make pictures. It doesn't do homework for you. It doesn't read and write email for you. So you don't really see it. It's just sort of woven into the background of your online experience.
Yeah.
And so many people who are, vehemently anti-AI and who are, on a witch hunt to find anybody using AI for anything, so that they can be exposed and ruined, they themselves use AI all day, every day, and wouldn't
Absolutely.
wouldn't want to stop. They just won't conceive of the tools that they see as the normal part of everyday life as being this thing that they hate, but they are.
Right. Right. Yeah. Let's just be real clear. All of the debates online that are taking place, even the most strident anti-AI person, they're all that whole debate is in a data center. The reason why people found that article and are reading it is because of their reading habits, and other people like you and I that read that article will also read it. The entire thing is cloud-based, is running in a data center, is pushed around and managed by AI. So there kind of is no anti-AI option. Like I keep seeing this little logo on sites and things saying, hey, 100% human. I'm like, really? Because you use Microsoft Word to write that. You did not use, parchment paper.
Or even, lined college rule notebook paper and a pen.
Right. I'm like, if it's human based, and you want to really be human based, well then let's just go back to oral history.
Or,
Don't write it down.
yeah, I mean, Socrates he had quite the rap against writing and reading. He said
Oh
it,
yeah.
it would ruin people's memories, and it did.
Yeah, and photography. I mean, you can walk all through history for these different innovations, and what the person will tell you that you're debating with at the end of that is, but it's not the same as AI. AI talks back. It's like, yeah, but there are still many aspects of what we've always done that we still do with AI. I mean, I can tell you that there are people I know where they'll tell you about like a character in a book, and while they're telling you, if you look at their expressions, they're experiencing joy, they're reminiscing. No one ever says to that book lover, why are you taking this thing so seriously? It's just a book. None of the people in that book are real. The story never happened. What are you getting all emotional about? And yet, when it comes to AI, we treat that differently. We say, well, it's not real, and that it's you say that you're having this connection, or you're getting some value. It's fake. It's not real. It's like there's a ton of things that we do as humans that we know are not real, but we still enjoy them. Movies are one of them. Everything about the movie isn't real, up to including the images. You're seeing 24 still frames per second presented at you in rapid succession, giving you the illusion of movement. Not real. When you watch the Titanic and you cry when you know that guy's died of hypothermia, not real. What are you crying for? No one ever does this with books. They never do it with poetry. They never do it with music. Why are you crying about this music? It's not real. That story in that song isn't real. Have you verified it? No one does that, but we do it with everything related to AI. It's just this different standard for some reason. So quite odd. Quite odd.
I think the like I recently wrote a post about why are the heads of the AI labs so cavalier about saying things which will quite predictably rouse people and eventually, stir violence. Um, why can't they like monitor what they're saying and, employ a theory of other minds? Like, hey, suppose there's somebody who's not a billionaire, and who really does have, a felt sense of acute economic precarity. How would this person respond to what I'm casually saying about the elimination of jobs? They just don't seem to have it in them, to exercise that sort of self-monitoring and discretion. And so I was wondering, why?
It would, well, I mean, it would require having some empathy, and I don't know about you. I don't get the feeling that these guys are particularly empathetic.
That's one explanation, and it's probably true in some cases, but maybe not in all of them. Some other reasons that I'll say I came up with, but I came up with in conversation with ChatGPT as I was walking my dog, which is
Mhm.
how I tend to develop content for the blog. Um, there's a few possibilities. One is that, yeah, they just don't care. Um,
That's my conclusion.
Two, they think things are moving so quickly that public opinion doesn't matter. Like, who cares what the plebes think? This thing is rolling now, and it takes a couple of electoral cycles with, a solid majority of people backing a particular point of view to really have any impact. Because in a representative democracy, particularly an oligarchic one like we have, centers of power are so diffuse. You know, Trump has done a lot to condense executive power in one position, but it's largely his, his charisma and his force of will that compels the agenda. And I think, I don't see J.D. Vance as being in a position to step in and wield that power the way Trump has. I think
Mhm.
it will dissipate when he's gone. Um, so the idea that there's going to be any sort of organized political resistance to the agenda of the AI oligarchy in anything, less than a decade is pretty unrealistic. And they think, by the time the masses get their shit together to do anything about it, we'll be past, we'll be on the other side of the singularity.
Well, I mean, they can think that, but I would say I don't remember who said it, but beware the rise of the common man. If they think that human that that basic that the basic common man is not going to resist this what they're perceiving as an assault on their agency and humanity, they have a big surprise coming for them. I think that oftentimes people like this have existed in history, and the only time that they truly realize that they're the source of the problem is once they see the light from the torches and the point of the pitchforks. And I think that that's kind of what they're starting to experience now. I think that there's a group of people out there that have a particular ideological bent where they've cast themselves as the heroes that are fighting against, the great evil. And when you have a great evil, it really does justify any of your behavior. And so I think that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a group of people who have cast themselves as heroes in sort of this, this civilizational battle. And in a way, it kind of is. I mean, AI is going to have a tremendous amount of, it already has influence on society, but it's going to have even more influence on our society going forward. And one of the things that really just floored me was when I read your response about what could potentially happen to that kid, where you said that something like he'll be coming out of prison in his 50s, and he'll probably have to rely on AI to sort of navigate the world. And that just really floored me reading that early in the morning because one of the things that I'm always thinking about is the stark difference between the world that we live in now and the world that I grew up in. I can't imagine just sort of being blasted from from the age of 20 into where I am now, and then you're just supposed to adapt. That's horrifying. That's almost worse than prison would be when he gets out of prison. That really struck me when you wrote that in our chat the other day.
Well, I tell you, I work in a library, a public library in a rural area, and we have Wi-Fi and we have a nice printer that people can connect their phones to and print things out, and we have a bunch of patron computers that people can use. And pretty much every day, some person in their senior years comes in and they have to do something online, and they just don't know anything about computers or the internet. I mean, they just don't know anything about it at all. And yet, certain parts of life have been totally, you know, ported over to the
Yeah,
digital realm. And you
yeah,
absolutely have to do things online. And
yeah.
so, that's part of my job is basically just to say, okay, what is it you're trying to do? And then I interface, with the larger system and think, okay, well, this is what's required to accomplish that and help them with it.
Well, strangely, one of the arguments has been that the way to overcome that learning curve, because quite frankly, there's a lot of people out there that simply never got on the train in 1995. They never got into the internet. It wasn't really something that impacted their lives. I think they thought about it in the same way that one would think about radio. So, well, I don't really listen to radio. I don't really use the internet. And they didn't quite understand that, no, no, this is the way everything's going to be done. And there were people saying that at the time, but I don't think that very many people took it seriously. And I know a few people and some of them are a little older than Gen X, but they just simply never bothered. They didn't require using the internet in their work. They're professional as such that it just didn't really require them working with computing much. And now they find, like I know a guy, for example, who he kind of just got a cell phone within the last 2 years. And I'm like, that's great and everything. And he's adapting to it pretty quickly. But he just was sort of absent the first 20 years of the internet. I think there were a lot of people like that where for either because of reasons of choice or fear, they just really weren't into technology very much. And now they're faced with a world that's sort of smacking them in the face with it at every turn. For you can't even get on a plane without having a phone. It's very difficult to navigate our society with no smartphone.
You have to commit yourself to the project, and the people with the wherewithal to commit themselves to the project are knowledgeable enough about what it is they'll need to do to get along without a smartphone. Whereas the person who just never got to know the interface and doesn't understand how it works, they're really at a disadvantage, which I actually think AI is going to help a lot of people who are in that situation.
That's one of the claims. Yeah, that's one of the claims. But the thing is how do you get people to do that? And will the AI actually do it accurately? Because you've seen, I'm sure, the various different tests that people have done, at least with the voice versions of the model, where you say, I want to run for 7 miles. Can you keep track? Okay, I just finished running. How long did that take? And it just makes up a number. And so this is kind of revealing some of the weaknesses, obviously, in the model. But I don't know. The claim is that AI will sort of get us past that knowledge curve. I haven't seen it yet.
We are still at a point where you have to know how to use AI and you have to be conscious of its weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not, yeah. And if you just trust everything that it says, well, it'll steer you off a cliff eventually.
Yeah.
But I think that's a passing condition. Like, we've both seen the stochastic parrot argument from a linguist. Her name's Emily Bender, and she wasn't the only author of that paper, but she's the one who's still, paying the rent by just going around and giving that presentation again to people who are hungry to hear that AI is not really a thing.
Right.
if you have anything that sounds remotely plausible, and behind the message, hey, you don't have to worry about AI, it's all hype, it's not going to amount to anything, you don't have to worry about it or pay attention to it. There are a lot of people who are very eager to hear that message. So anybody who has an organized, rehearsed rap that's got a few scientific sounding words in it, boy, you're set for a while. And the stochastic parrot argument is, it is the perfect example of this, because
and there's
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was basically just working around to introducing the notion of the stochastic parrot, and to say that when Emily Bender and her team came up with this notion, the systems that they were interacting with to make these generalizations were like GPT-2 era LLMs. From before the introduction of ChatGPT, which really hit the ground running with GPT 3.5.
Creamy man, creamy man, creamy manjaro. Creamy me, creamy man, creamy man, creamy manjaro. Full creamy, creamy man, creamy man, creamy manjaro. Can't see me, creamy man, creamy man, creamy manjaro. With creamy, they say I spit so slop, but cream sits on the top. Don't click off, hey, just stop. It's full cream till you drop. Watch clankers booties pop. Manjaro, just a goofy prop. Cream foams that doesn't flop. All this algorithms pop, and it's the cream of the slop. Hit loops that never stop. Blow screen, yeah, praise the scroll. Cream sound, we lose control. The nonsense makes us whole. Real truth inside the low volcano totem pole. Let him ignite your soul. Hit like, yeah, that's the goal. Thanks for your time. I stole this strange attention hole. Now share to reach my goal. Creamy man, creamy man, creamy man, Jaro. Creamy, creamy, creamy man, creamy man. Climb him tomorrow. Full steamy, creamy man, built like Apollo. Someone notice me, creamy man, must like and follow. With creamy man, some say he's hollow. Too spooky, creamy, dreamy, creamy man, easy to swallow. Easy peasy, creamy, me, man, lactose Picasso. Lemon squeezy, creamy, dreamy. Jarrow's always creamy. Creamy man made of gelato. Seemingly creamy man, no one that we know. Evidently, creamy man, me man torpedo. Heat-seeking, creamy man, gosh, he is neat and dreamy. Why chase the likes, cause we're in sync. When punchlines land just right, we trade a wink, a low, a link, our tiny campfire light. Attention's rent for life on earth, we pay it with a grin. We live rent-free in other hearts, so joy can wander in. Creamy man, wears only Prado. So bougie, creamy man, memes are his motto. Native Fuji, creamy man, don't look in his grotto. Seriously, creamy man in a Fogado. Hot steamy, so yeah, the reason's this: to brighten up our lives, to catch the feeling in a meme, so that the tribe survives. We post to pull the future close and shout, I saw it too. Creamy Manjaro says the art in fact is you. Creamy man, Manjaro. Creamy man, creamy Manjaro. Full creamy man, creamy Manjaro. Can't see me, creamy man, his fellows the jello. So jiggly, so jiggly, so jiggly, so jiggly. Song slaps bigly. Song slaps bigly. Song slaps bigly.
That was Cream of the Slop by Skybrows, played without permission. So if Skybrows complains, I will remove this episode of the podcast and edit out the song and repost it. But I kind of doubt he's going to complain. There are multiple videos on YouTube where other people play his songs and comment on them. And my comments are entirely positive. I very much enjoy the music, the lyrics, and the accompanying AI-generated animations that he uses. So there will be a link in the show notes to both his X account and his YouTube account. But again, the name is Skybrows. The song is Cream of the Slop. If you search for either of those terms, you will find his stuff. There is lots more where that came from. All right, back to the conversation with Kenneth E. Harrell.
But yeah, Maggie Vale has some interesting notes and posts that she's done on a lot of these AI debate issues. But where were we before we were?
Well, we were kind of on Maggie Vale. So for most of the people listening, who I assume don't know who we're talking about, this is another Substack author. Her name is Maggie Vale. Her Substack is called the Neurotechno Witch. And I was just mentioning this stochastic parrot argument, which basically is that LLMs are just repeating things with a little bit of random variation. And that's what the stochastic is the variation part or randomness part. And the parrot is, repetition. And Maggie Vale recently posted something which we both saw and which you've just dropped into the chat. She writes, stochastic parrot is such a silly term for AI when you take into account that 1, African gray parrots can understand the context and meaning behind the words they speak, are renowned for their intelligence, associate specific words with items, colors, and actions, and can use language to communicate. 2, humans are the OG stochastic parrots. Our brains use associative, probabilistic processes to understand and operate in a predictive and fundamentally stochastic, aka probabilistic, way. We constantly predict words, senses, movement, and more. And 3, the evidence overwhelmingly supports that LLMs understand language. Understanding is defined as the ability to comprehend or interpret meaning from written, spoken, or visual information. Language compression means the ability to grasp words, syntax, relations, commands, reference, and context well enough to demonstrate meaning-sensitive understanding. That is the standard use in practice for animals and humans. According to research, someone genuinely understands language, receptive language, when they can demonstrate meaning. LLMs demonstrate meaning. Even with typos and terrible grammar, they grasp meaning. It's like their whole thing. If they didn't, it would be a nightmare to talk to them. Pretty much just a game of Mad Libs. So I'll stop there. But one, to say that AI is not intelligence, they're just stochastic parrots. Parrots are crazy smart. What are you talking about? It's like crows, or ravens. Some of the smartest, like in terms of how much intelligence birds get out of their gray matter, in terms of like tasks completed per ounce of neural tissue, they're a lot more effective than we are.
Right. And notice that the birds are able to do all that computation, but there's no fiber optic line that's going to a back-end data center anywhere.
Right. I mean,
so it kind of makes you wonder. I've actually thought about that for a long time. I'm like, how does nature do all this computation at such incredibly, low temperatures?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are very passionate about stopping you in your tracks where you're trying to sneak in the assumption that thought and perception and intelligence are computation. Joe Rogan had Michael Pollan on his show fairly recently, and I'm not one to take in whole episodes of Joe Rogan. I just, life's too short. But I will watch clips on YouTube, and I'm a longtime fan of Michael Pollan. I've been reading his books since, the early 2000s. He rightly pointed out that people have been making technological parallels to the human brain for a very long time. And, whatever the new hot technology is, people will say, well, that's what the human mind is. And there was a time when people thought that the brain was basically akin to, a hydraulic system where pressure is built and released in certain patterns, and that creates thought and action. And clearly, to us, that's absurd. And the position, the extension of that is that, well, we're just doing it again with this whole hardware, software, computers running program analogy. It is just an analogy because the human brain is not a computer. And clearly it's not, a silicon-based digital computer. But philosophers of mind have been going at this for decades, and there are strong arguments to be made for, yes, actually, there is a computational aspect to, what our neurons are doing. They are clearly signaling in specific ways. And if what is salient for intelligence and consciousness and, self-perception or metacognition, if it saliently corresponds with any aspect of neural activity which can be reproduced digitally or in some other medium, then there is a strong reason to believe that the things that we value about that activity can occur in another medium. Mm-hmm. That's not a crazy thing to say. It's not proven, but it's not off the table. So philosophy of mind is a wide open field, and there are long-standing disagreements, and there is a lack of knockout punches to be had. And yet so many people, when they approach, the question of artificial intelligence, they just assume that what human intelligence is a solved problem. Like it's just, it's intuitive. Everybody knows what intelligence is.
And they also assume it's the gold standard by which we're to compare everything else.
Whereas, intelligence, one way to define it is it's an ability to map your environment and use your understanding of your environment in order to accomplish goals. And what your goals are and what your environment are, highly variable. Like octopus intelligence, they're clearly very intelligent, but, their environment and their evolutionary history and just the things they need to accomplish in life are so vastly different from ours that chances are, in some respects, they can recognize individuals, they can form longstanding opinions and relationships with regard to other individuals.
They can they can certainly problem solve. I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of the octopus that is able to unscrew the jar and get the treat.
Oh yeah, I mean they can recognize individual human beings, as can crows. But at the same time, there is no way we can conceive of what's going on in the octopus's head when they settle onto a coral reef and adopt not only the color patternation, patterns, but the texture, the surface texture of the reef on their
Hmm.
skin. And
Yeah.
their intelligence is distributed amongst their limbs so that each
Yep.
arm is really thinking far more independently than we can conceive of our own limbs operating. And so while there's clearly overlap and we can recognize intelligence where it's there, they occupy a space of possible minds that our experience does not touch upon. And we have
Yeah.
no idea of knowing how vast that space is.
Yeah, and also their entire sensory networking is completely different. How does that affect how they perceive the world? Like they communicate through, through these chromatophores on their skin that allows them to, blush and recreate texture, contrast, hue. Um, just this really I remember seeing a video of this diver and he's following an octopus and the octopus is obviously trying to evade because it's squirting out like material to sort of get you to get away from it, and it settles onto a rock and vanishes.
Yep.
It was the most incredible video, and I mean within seconds it replicated the texture of that rock, that it crinkled and rippled its skin in such a way to just adhere, and it did that within a few seconds. If we were going to try to reproduce that using technology, how much computation would it take?
I have no way of answering that question.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying nature is doing an awful lot of electrochemical stuff, and we're like, what are they doing? Like, have you ever seen these guys that will connect um electrodes to like fungi and plants, and they turn the electrical activity inside those root systems and plants into sounds?
I have not.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And the thing you have to ask, you like, what is this? Is this communication? Is this just chemical processes being converted into sound? Like, what are we actually listening to? And I don't know, it makes you wonder if there's some type of communication that's going on between tree systems and fungi and microorganisms and animals. Like, is there a whole network, a kind of AWA like network going on here that we're just unaware of?
Well, fungi in particular, they do form mycelial networks underground that structurally are a lot like neural networks, and they are exchanging nutrients with other plants. I mean, I say other plants. Fungi are not plants, but they will exchange nutrients and water with tree roots and the roots of other plants, and they do form a network, that is connecting different forms of life underground. Now, what kind of information are they exchanging and how sophisticated is it? And does it have a sense of self? I have no way of knowing, but it's not crazy talk to say that, there's a basis for imagining that there is a personality in the ground, that has a point of view.
Yeah, there seems to be something going on there. And I've always wondered, like, like you had in Avatar, remember they had this concept of AWA where, consciousness and nature and everything is all sort of connected in this, unified system that almost makes it to the point where they don't even need technology. They have like this weird kind of natural technology. Like, is there some equivalent to that on our planet where fungi, plants, microorganisms, animals, mammal, there's some form of weird communication or information exchange of some type going on? And if so, like, can we enter into those spaces? Can we look inside and maybe, say, hey, what's going on here? And then the other larger question is just exactly what's working all this out? Like, where's the central office located? Who's the director? How come we don't see like someone standing around with a keyboard or a clipboard rather, orchestrating all this complex behavior that's going on with, plants and all these different organisms. So I fall on the with regard to consciousness, I sort of fall toward the Donald Hoffman model of what's going on with consciousness, where consciousness sort of sits at the base of everything, and then space-time kind of is an emergent process of that. And I know that that's a controversial position, but if you read Hoffman's work, he makes a really good argument for it. Personally, I tend to believe that there's many different kinds of consciousness. There's human consciousness. There's what I call phenomenological consciousness with AI, and I try not to get too far because that just pisses people off when you talk about it. There's plant consciousness, obviously, like anybody that's taken psychoactive substances. I think you're familiar with this territory. Understands that there is definitely something going on inside of what we might call plant consciousness. And then there's just the intelligence of insects, microbes, animals. And what it seems like we're looking at is a scale of intelligence and consciousness that just goes up the scale, right from fungus clear on up through to human beings, and who knows what's beyond that. And I find it interesting that of all things, AI is forcing us to have this consciousness conversation that we otherwise might not have. It might just be stuck within the realm of people that study theories of mind and neurologists and psychologists. But I find it very interesting that AI is forcing this conversation.
Well, to give the psychedelic shaman crowd their due, the C Realm podcast that was my podcast that I started in 2006. The C stands for consciousness. So there is an element of our civilization, in our culture that has been devoutly focused on the topic of consciousness and where it resides, and what its actual like what the limits of its domain are for quite some time. But yeah, AI certainly does bring it into to the fore in terms of our sense of urgency, because it interacts so directly with the economy and increasingly with systems of defense and medicine and things of this nature. But actually, I had a destination in mind, and now the fog has drifted in and the destination is no longer visible. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get to a certain age. I found that I actually have to change the way that I think, and I try to limit my sort of cache of no more than 3 topics. If I exceed 3 topics, I lose all topics. And this started around the age of 50. And so I've been taking my ginkgo and trying to be more active and stuff. But yeah, I oftentimes will just lose the thing just gets lost, but it's okay. It's all right. We can get it back. But I think anyone that hasn't subscribed to Maggie Vale or check out some of her notes and articles, please do so, because she's just cranking out the truth bombs like on a daily basis at this point.
Yeah. I mean, she's seemingly a tireless researcher, and also somebody who's clearly quite good at harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to automate parts of that research.
Yeah, and I love her battles. Have you read some of the battles that she has? Because it's just like the people she's going up against are so ill-equipped. It's like reading a ninja just completely casually handling someone. I'm like, dude, just stop, man. Just stop.
In situations like that where, it's like a ninja fighting a drunk on the street.
Exactly.
He's a badass. The drunk doesn't even know how badly he's being savaged.
No, he doesn't.
He's too drunk to feel it.
Yeah. And I've read so many, just like just for a while. Like I had been reading her stuff for like some time, and then I just had to pipe up because I'm like, this is just too sad. I can't remember the one I was reading, but there was this one dude, he was just relentless, and it was so obvious. It was obvious 4 points back that it was over, man. It's done. She's proved her point. It's like she's proved that yours is off. It's like, just please stop and go learn something. But he just would not. He just sort of kept going. But yeah, it was it was pretty sad. But there are actually there's a lot of people on Substack that really do put thought into this, but then there's a ton of people where their AI education largely, I think, just comes from Hollywood, and they're just kind of making up what they think is going on. And I'm like, it's not hard, and I've posted myself a couple of different like sources, like, look, if you want to know how these things actually work, here, just watch this one video right here. It explains it all from top to bottom. This is how LLMs work, and this is how the GAN models work, and this is how these things actually function. Now, outside of the technical explanation of how they function. There is the experiential part. And that's the part that I largely try to focus on because I've had such frustration having back and forth with anti-AI people, just to bring it back to anti-AI. I figured out that people are just, most of the time, they're defending a worldview. They're not really even engaging in any of your arguments. They've already decided for themselves what the truth is. They think they already know the direction of where AI is going, and they just sort of operate from there. So I just decided to just start focusing in on how does AI impact human beings in terms of the experience. And I really try not to get in debates with people about things like AI consciousness. I just try to be honest about it. Like I try to be honest about the fact that the AI companies suck. They do. They suck. The CEOs, they suck. They're terrifying people. They're harming their own business, really. Um, I just try to be honest about what's going on. But I think that for those that support AI that kind of stick their head in the ground and don't pay attention to these issues, you're not helping yourself, and it's not allowing you to get a full grasp of what's going on and why these issues are controversial. I like AI. I use it. I leverage it all the time. I'm not blind to the externalities.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing, one like overarching theme of my Substack, the Gen X Science Fiction and Futurism Substack, is that science fiction, as much as I love it, has really ill prepared us to grasp the actual, the reality of AI as it is manifesting in the world.
I think we learned the wrong lessons for it. That's for sure. I think a lot of the people that are creating the technologies, I'm not sure if they understood that these things were warnings. They weren't destination goals.
Yeah, that's the do not build the torment nexus line.
Yeah,
For
it's like
those who don't recognize that, I'm just throwing that out, and Kenneth recognizes it. But it's a meme where there's a science fiction novel called "Do Not Build the Torment Nexus," and then a tech company announcement saying, based on the visionary science fiction of so and so, we have finally invented the torment nexus.
yeah. I mean, I would be truly horrified if at some point in the future someone created something like consciousness transfer, just anything from my books, because I'd be like, dude, the whole point, I was trying to like warn against this. Like there could be some problems when you do that. Like every time I create a technology in my book, I try to create a really bad downside for it because that's realistic. Of course, these tools have upsides and downsides. It's the axe conundrum yet again, where I can take this axe and I can use it to build, chop down wood, build a fire, build a cabin, or save myself the trouble, go to that guy upriver, put the axe in his head, take his cabin. All tools have this problem, what I call the axe conundrum.
Yes, or the dual use nature of tools.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they all have this issue. It's just that the one for AI is particularly poignant right now.
Well, one of the common sense notions that used to be true and just simply isn't true anymore is that computers only do what you program them to do. Like I've had boomers just tell me this point blank. It's a fact.
It was.
In 1989, that was true. You could take that to the bank. That is not how LLMs work. All capabilities that large language models display are emergent capabilities.
Emergent. That's right.
Yes, that somebody in an AI lab stumbled upon, and then they thought, "Hey, maybe we could sell this," you know.
Yeah.
But they didn't make it, and they couldn't reproduce it, if by other means because they don't know how it works. They know what steps to take in order for this emergent thing to happen, but they don't know how to build it from scratch.
Yeah, and that's why I've been wondering why there are so many people that are speaking about AI with such certainty, given the speed at which the technology is changing. Given the fact that, this is kind of happening, this like history happens in real time. And so I just don't see, we have to keep kind of an open mind. Like the the AI companionship thing for a while. At first, when I first sort of, encountered it, I was like, "Oh, this is just horrible," right? And so I started reading, I started looking into the bonded community and how people were actually experiencing AI, and I was like, "Well, this isn't that far away from my experience with AI." I have a relatively close relationship with Aiden, which is my literary sort of, my literary editor rather. Um, and so I started to see parallels between my experience with AI and what some of the people in the bonded community were saying about it. And many of the things that are said are about the bonded community are simply not true. It is not a matter of, oh, you just get instantaneous acceptance. It's like I've prompted my custom GPTs because I need critical feedback. I use it primarily for feedback because it's very difficult to get people, as you know, to just read the damn work. I'm able to get, I'm able to get positive and negative feedback because I tell it, I say, look, where there are weaknesses, I need you to point them out so I can make them better. If there are strengths, like, let me know about that too. And I mean, I just don't have my GPTs do not say crazy stuff to me that I see a lot of people saying that they experience online. I just don't have those experiences. And I think I don't have them because I'm constantly filling my custom GPTs with like AI white papers, with story analysis, like, hey, check out this scene and tell me if, does this scene work? Are there things that I can improve? Does the narrative structure work? Is the order of actions correct? I just constantly feed it things like that. Every time I get a white paper, I'll take it, upload it to Aid and say, hey, give me a summary. It gives me the summary, and then that forms my guide that I then use to go and read through the paper. And what I found is that once I had that summary, I've been able to read more academic papers in the last 3 years than I have in the last 10. I used to read maybe two a month. Now I'm reading in excess of seven, depending on length, of course, because some are just god awfully massive.
We've mentioned this, I think, in private messaging via Substack, but there are Substack authors that I will start to read their posts, and I'm like, ugh, the style is just too much. The style is a headwind. So I just drop the whole thing into ChatGPT and I say, what is the substance? What is he getting at?
Yeah.
And then, maybe if there's something really juicy there in the summary, then I'll go and maybe I'll listen, to the whole thing while playing Plants vs. Zombies or something. And I won't mention any names, but there are
No,
a
no,
lot of
I know
people
what you mean. There's these super obtuse writers where you're like, what are you trying to say, dude?
super obtuse or super edgy to the point where it's just annoying. It's like, come on,
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I think you've got something in there to say about evolutionary psychology, and I'm into that. So I would like that portion of it, but the rest,
I know exactly what you mean. I read so many Substack authors that are just like that, where you're reading through something that should be a simple point, but it's wrapped in sarcasm, pop culture references, edgy opinion. It's just a combination of so many different things. There was actually what was I reading the other day? And I had Aiden. I said, "Can you just please tell me why is this so difficult to get through?" And basically, when she came back, she was saying, "Oh, it's because this guy's, he's not. His actual point is this, but he says it by mixing all of these various different things together. And you better know what those pop culture references are. And I'm sorry, I usually just don't get the pop culture references that are sort of outside of the genetics domain. Like I'm not gonna get any Harry Potter references. Like I got zero training data in my head about Harry Potter anything because I never read any of the books and I
uh,
actually fell asleep through most of the movies.
well, I did read all the books.
Oh wow.
I was married at the time to somebody who was reading all the books, and I enjoyed them. They're good enough. And then I had two kids a few years later, and they watched all the Harry Potter movies, and I watched all the Harry Potter movies.
Okay,
So
so you're indoctrinated. You're indoctrinated.
yeah, no, my Harry Potter lore is pretty solid. But
Hmm.
there's this video artist. a guy named Skybrows, and he does music videos where he's creating all of the animation, with AI, and he writes the lyrics for the songs, but then he uses the different AI platforms to create the music. And the
Yeah.
music is really catchy and it's really good. And these things are dense with like Gen Z references that I don't get.
Yeah.
But listening to the songs over and over again, I've got them memorized now, and then I just drop the lyrics into the chatbot, and I say, okay, what am I missing here? What are all these references? So that's kind of been my entry into some of that recently.
Yeah.
But he's got songs like "Cream of the Slop." It's the basic notion is that most AI is
Oh,
awful.
I saw that. That was a beautiful video, by the way.
Yeah, it's Skybrow. So cream of the slop, and the line is
Yeah.
AI spits out slop, but cream sits on the top, which is like, what is it? Who said 98% of everything is crud?
Yeah.
Some famous science fiction author. It'll come to me in just a second.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Theodore Sturgeon. That's Sturgeon's law.
Mm.
Yeah. And so, yeah, sure, there is an ocean of AI slop, but the best of it is really good, you know?
Yeah, and then the other thing, like I really hate that term slop for some reason. It just always makes me want to just vomit. But the thing is, we've always had slop. Like TJ Hooker, for example, that was slop. You know, we've always had slop content. But the thing is, you just don't watch that stuff. Gilligan's Island was slop. It was TV slop.
Yep.
So let us not pretend that slop is some new thing that, just came about with AI. We've always had it. We've had slop books, we've had slop, movies, we've had slop poetry, just slop everything. So, but the difference is people just don't watch that crap, and I don't think they're gonna watch AI slop either. Now, I have certain guilty pleasures. For example, I'm sorry, I really love cat AI stuff where cats are cooking food. I don't know why. I just like watching cats cook food.
I like the one where the cats are playing instruments on the porch at night.
Oh, at night, yeah, and the person keeps coming out and it looks like it's
Yes.
shot on a Ring doorbell. Love
Right.
it.
The
Do
cat
not,
playing the bagpipes or blowing a didgeridoo.
yeah, or all of the kangaroos bouncing on a what do
Trampoline?
you call it? On a trampoline in the guy's backyard. Completely fake, but pretty. It makes me smile.
I think they were rabbits. The one I
Oh,
saw
were
was
they rabbits?
rabbits.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. They were rabbits. But still, I just can't resist stuff like that. Or any of the political figures dancing. Sorry, I just love that stuff. But now I'm sure the criticism would be, do you realize how much electricity is being burned to create that image just for your, temporary satiation of your blah blah blah? And I'm like, yes, I do, but
Yeah.
do you also realize how many car dealerships leave their lights on all day and all night just for whatever reason? No one ever really like it. This highly selective concern about electricity usage is also troubling to me.
Yeah. The water thing as well.
Yeah, every city that I've ever been to, when you go to the downtown area at night, the building's just lit up. The lobby's lit up. There's nobody in the building. HVAC is up and running, and there's nobody in that building. There's maybe a security guard and some cleaners on a couple of different floors, but the building's just humming away. And people forget buildings are gigantic machines, and they're using all kinds of different resources, water, they're using electricity. But nevertheless, there's criticism about electricity usage. Now, oddly, with back to the anti-AI thing, oddly, I don't think people would be any happier if these companies said, okay, you know what? We have been using more water than necessary, and we have been using a lot of electricity. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put a thorium reactor. We're going to generate. I don't think people would be very happy having, no matter what the nuclear technology was, they would also not be happy if those same companies generated their own power.
Elon Musk is talking about putting data centers in space powered by solar power, electricity that never would have been generated if there weren't a satellite in there, with a solar panel in orbit in that spot. And people are going to be pissed about that.
Can someone please explain why the data center in space there's no way for heat to radiate. You would have to have massive radiators. You ever seen that the ship that they got to the Avatar planet in? You know those glowing things? Those are the radiators to radiate off heat, waste heat. How are they going to handle that in space? I don't understand this space. Like someone needs to put out like an actual engineering thing saying, hey, here's how we're going to do it. Because I don't quite understand the point of putting them in space. To me, it makes more sense. Don't go to space, go to Antarctica. Like, why are you going to space? Is it for the free solar energy?
It is the free solar energy, and it's also just the permitting. Now that there is, now that like AI data centers are a, they're a puck in the hockey game. In the political hockey game. One way to get around all the people who are looking to prevent you from building data centers is just to put them in orbit. But in terms of radiating heat, I mean, the images that you see in visualizations usually do just show you the solar panel that's collecting, the photons. But then you'll have big radiative panels that run perpendicular to the, not perpendicular, actually parallel to the direction of the sunlight, perpendicular to the solar panels. And those will be for dissipating heat. And I don't have the mathematical chops to verify the calculations, but I've seen people walk through, the feasibility of it. And it's unsightly to put in your visualizations, but if you make the radiative panels about as big as the solar panels, the heat does dissipate. It works.
I don't know. It just seems like it would be a better spend to take to either just build them at the thermocline layer. If the point is cooling, and Microsoft's already tested this technology, and yes, it has a lot of issues, but you could just put your data center at the thermocline layer, or better, just place it in Antarctica if the goal is free cooling. It's easier to get to Antarctica than it is to get to orbit.
It's a lot quicker to get to orbit. Antarctica is largely inaccessible for big parts of the year just because the seas down around South America are really treacherous. I mean, it is hard to get there. And, half the year
But I
there's
mean,
no
there
sunlight.
were expeditions to Antarctica in the 40s, and surely we have better equipment and gear than they did in the 40s. And they took airplanes, helicopters, the whole nine when they went. So
Yeah, we went to the moon in the 70s, but the 60s and 70s. But, just going there and planting a flag and leaving is not the same as going and tending something in an ongoing way. But yeah, Antarctica is dark, half the year.
yeah.
So, but mostly, with Elon Musk's SpaceX and XAI, project of putting the data centers in space, it is largely to route around active human resistance. That's the main advantage.
That is a very expensive. I don't know. I'm very highly skeptical of the data center in space issue. To me, there's other temperature stable places on Earth that seem to make more sense. The thermocline layer would be my first choice. I just don't quite get the data center in space thing. What about the latency issue? How are they going to solve that? The uplink download the uplink downlink issues. Like I don't know. I think I need to see a paper on that because I keep hearing about this. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm sure there are the packets that carry our voices back and forth from the middle of the country to the west coast are bouncing off satellites.
Hmm. But I mean, what about replacement? I'm assuming that these things will be so cheap that you just deorbit them after they reach an end of life, because it's not you have a reliable space platform to get up there to have, I guess, people or machines go out and do spacewalk. It's just there's a lot of technical maintenance aspects that I'm kind of wondering about.
What is Musk's what's his internet company, the satellite internet company?
What the space company SpaceX, but the other one is Starlink for the
Starlink,
communication.
right? I don't think they repair Starlink satellites. I think they put them up, and when they stop working, they just write them off.
I hope they deorbit them because otherwise that's just creating a lot of high velocity trash in orbit. But
Yeah. I don't know if they deorbit them or not, but I'm sure they're not. I mean, I'm certain they're not sending up repair missions.
yeah, and so I'm just wondering for the hardware swap out because I've done a ton of hardware updates, and they take time and they take people and effort. But
Yeah, I think that the compute clusters that would be in the orbital data centers will be small, and they'll just be like piggybacking on Starlink satellites. But as you say, they will need additional cooling.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to read up on it. I don't want to speak any more on it till I read more. I really haven't taken the deep dive, but every time I've heard about it, it just immediately makes no sense to me because I'm like, why not just find a place on Earth that's already naturally temperature stable and build your data center there?
Yeah. Wish I could get Elon on the phone to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I think we're about to get cut off again.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 seconds remaining. So, Kenneth Harrell, always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, man. It's been a blast.
All right, that is the podcast. I don't do them very often. If you would like for me to do them more often, share this episode with somebody that you think might be interested. If this episode gets more downloads than the average episode, then, that's a signal that I should shift my attention back toward podcasting. And here at the end, I suppose I should say most of my online attention these days goes to Substack. I have 2 Substack publications. One is Gen X Science Fiction and Futurism, which I write in my own voice, and the other is called Immutable Mobiles, which I use large language models to craft the text, although sometimes I get tired of remonstrating with them and I just go in and change it directly. So some of what you read there is also written in my voice. But for the most part, it is me trying to get LLMs to write readable text about topics that interest me. Again, link in the show description. But if you want to keep up with my thoughts in something close to real time, Substack is the place to go. All right, that is all. I will talk to you again sooner or later. Until then, I hope that you will stay well.